So you've been sticking to your diet all week and it's time for your weekly weigh-in, and you get on the scales, really excited to see how much weight you've lost, and you've gained weight. Disaster. What do we do? The techniques that I'm sharing with you today are not only going to help with disappointment when the scales don't go down, but you can also use these strategies to overcome disappointment in any area of your life. Before I share the strategies with you, I need you to understand how your brain works. Now, you have two parts of your brain that I call the two brains, and they're in battle with each other all the time. One brain is called the automatic brain and the other brain is called the rational brain, and you can only use one brain at a time. So the automatic brain works automatically. It's responsible for the fight, flight or freeze responses, and it's also responsible for your emotions. So when you react emotionally, this is an automatic response that you can't actually help unless you plan for a different response by knowing how the other brain works. The other brain, the rational brain, is used when you're calm and collected. You use this brain to plan for the future, set goals, analyze why things aren't working, and decide what to do next. When you get a different result that you weren't expecting, a so-called negative result like not losing weight when you thought you were going to lose weight, your automatic brain kicks in with an emotional reaction. Once you're having that emotional reaction, it's too late to stop that emotional reaction. But when you calm down, your rational brain can help you decide a sensible plan for moving forward and also avoiding such an extreme emotional reaction next time. So when people receive a disappointment, like for example, gaining weight when they expected to lose weight, common emotional reactions are things like disappointment, frustration and self-doubt. Many people will end up feeling like a failure. And when I was thinking about this, I suddenly realized that the emotional process that you experience when you haven't lost weight can be similar to the grief cycle. And they might go through very similar stages that resemble a grief cycle, such as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, acceptance. There are 5 stages to the grief cycle, and the first 4 stages all involve using your automatic brain. And once you've reached stage 5, it's only then you can use your rational brain to help you move out of the grief cycle completely. And unfortunately, most people who experience disappointment with weight loss never get to stage 5. They never even reach this stage, and they're just stuck at one of the first 4 stages of the grief cycle. And the good news is that you don't have to work through the grief cycle one stage at a time. You can leap from one stage to the final stage, and although some people remain trapped in the grief cycle for life, other people can move through it in a matter of seconds if you know how the brain works. So let's look at the first stage of the grief cycle, denial. So when you know that you've stuck to your diet all week and you jump on the scales and you expect to see the scales go down, and then you don't see the scales go down and you're in denial. You think, well, that can't be right. Are the scales broken? Did I do something wrong? After that, you move on to the second stage of the grief cycle, which is anger. Once the reality sets in that your weight didn't go down on the scales, a lot of people feel frustrated or angry, either with themselves, like, why can't I just get the hang of this? Why doesn't this work for me? Or maybe with the process. I followed this diet to the letter and the diet's let me down. Or even external factors. I'm big boned. It's my genes, it's my hormones, or life is just stressing me out. And at this stage, you might compare yourself to other people. That person next to you who's lost 6 pounds and has had 2 takeaways, gone out for a meal, and had an emotional binge eating session, and she still lost 6 pounds. It is so not fair. Then you might enter stage 3 of the grief process, which is bargaining. At this stage, people might try and rationalize their results by making bargains with themselves, like, I'll just eat fewer calories tomorrow to compensate. Or if I cut carbs or do more exercise, I'll see better results next week. Or worse, they might decide to fast for the whole day and just not eat anything at all. Next, people enter the 4th stage of the grief cycle, which is depression. And this is where frustration and anger turns into sadness and despair. People feel deflated and they lose their energy and they feel a lot of self-doubt or shame. And because they're so upset and they're so low in energy, this is unfortunately when people start to emotionally eat and go on a binge. They turn to food for a source of comfort, and not just a source of comfort, but it's actually a punishment. Punishment for not getting the results you want. You're self-sabotaging yourself and your results for next week. And this can lead to a cycle of emotional eating and binging. And this just snowballs and leads to further weight gain, which leads to more binging, which leads to more weight gain. And this is the point where people give up on their diets. People feel like they've gone back to square one. They've lost all hope and they totally give up. And this is often where they'll stay, unfortunately, for the rest of their lives. Sometimes they might try the odd, quick diet and end up back at stage 1, more denial, more anger, more bargaining, more depression, and the pattern continues. But if you can get to stage 5, this is where we can see some dramatic improvements. Stage 5 of the grief cycle is acceptance. And this is where your rational brain is finally allowed to take over. When your rational brain kicks in, you'll start to lose logic and reasoning. And when you're thinking logically, you'll be able to recognize that weight gain isn't just caused by an increase in fat in your body. There are over 15 different reasons why you can gain weight on the scales, even though you might have actually lost fat that week, but the scales wouldn't register it. And your rational brain knows this. Your rational brain knows that, especially for women, when they're on a weight loss journey, your weight loss doesn't continue consistently every single week. The graph is not linear. The graph goes down and then up a little bit, then down a bit more, then up, then down, then up, then down, like a roller coaster. But if you're losing fat, the overall trend will continue downhill. So how do we move through that disappointment and get out of this cycle? And while the weight loss grief cycle is a natural part of the process of disappointment, you can adopt strategies that will help you move out of this cycle a lot faster and in a more productive way. Here's some things you can do. The first thing I suggest you do is to acknowledge your emotions without judgment. That means don't feel guilty for feeling emotional. Don't feel bad about it. Don't try and punish yourself for feeling emotional. We're supposed to have emotions. It's part of being human. Try and learn to be okay with your emotions. If you're frustrated, you're angry, you're sad, you're disappointed, own your feelings and tell yourself, even though I'm feeling frustrated, I'm okay. I'm okay with this frustration. I'm okay to sit with this until I'm not frustrated anymore. It's fine to allow yourself enough time to properly feel your emotions. When I've received some bad news, maybe somebody's been rude to me, a rude text message, a customer's not happy. If I'm feeling emotional, I will allow myself to feel emotional without reacting. And if I don't have to take action, I sometimes even allow myself 24 hours or at least to sleep on it, because I know that when I wake up in the morning, I won't feel anywhere near as emotional as I did the previous day. So I avoid taking any action if it's not urgent, because I know when I take action from a place of an emotional state, it's not going to be good for me. And it's probably not going to be good for the people around me either. The next thing you can do when you're feeling emotional is to relieve your stress. You're stressed out, you've got all this pent-up emotion, and you need to release it. You might think that you can release it by having a binge and eating some delicious food, but this is really not going to help. Some of the best ways to release stress are to go for a walk. Everything seems better when you're walking. Have a chat with a friend. Tell them what emotions you're feeling. Have a bath. Do some journaling or get some fresh air. The next thing you can do when you've relieved some of your stress is try to shift to a growth mindset, if at all possible, if you're not feeling as emotional and you've calmed down a bit. So this can involve trying to reframe the disappointment as a failure and turn it into a learning opportunity. So the truth is that when you have stepped on the scales and you think that you have stuck to your diet to the letter and the scales didn't go in the right direction, it's easy to label yourself as a failure, but you don't actually know the reason why the scales have gone up. And because you've stuck to your diet, it's probably nothing to do with having gained any fat. So try and ask yourself, is there anything I can learn from the previous week? Have I done anything differently? Have I changed my diet? Has anything changed with my hormones? Could there be any reason for this weight gain? Now, if you're calm enough, you might begin thinking about action that you can take next. So you've had a setback. It's stopped you in your tracks. It's made you question everything. And at this point, you've got 3 potential actions that you can take. Action number 1, you can give up completely on trying to lose weight and go back to doing what you were doing before, which wasn't working for you. Is this really an option that you want to take? Is this a rational decision to make? It's probably still coming from an emotional place if you feel like this. But still, some people do make this decision. Some people just say, I just love to eat the food I love. Like to eat big quantities. I don't like to feel any kind of restriction. I give up and I accept myself the way I am. So that is your choice, as long as it comes from a rational place. Number 2, you can carry on with your current diet and don't change anything, even though you feel like it might not have worked for you this week. The best thing to do is carry on for at least another 2 weeks and then assess whether you've had any changes. In 3 weeks' time, you should have got some results on the scale. If the scale hasn't gone down, then you can move to action number 3, which is to reduce the number of calories by about 100 calories per day. You might be eating more calories than you expect. Perhaps you're not realizing that you're not sticking to your diet to the letter. Perhaps you're not tracking everything to the letter. Perhaps you're shoving something in your mouth and not even realizing you're doing it. Or perhaps you're logging something incorrectly. Something you think is maybe lower in calories is actually higher in calories. So have a good look at your plan. See if you can work out where you might be going wrong and whether you're eating the correct number of calories, and then make changes accordingly. One thing I recommend you do is to keep your food intake very simple. The more complicated your meals, the more likely you are to go off track. The more mixtures you make, the more casseroles and everything that you throw together, the more likely is you're going to be throwing something in, like maybe some olive oil that you didn't even realize you were doing, and you totally forgot to track it, and you didn't realize that there was hundreds of extra calories in that olive oil. So the best thing to do is just put simple food items onto a plate and keep it really simple. The next thing I suggest you do is to focus only on goals you can control rather than goals you can't control. So weight loss is a goal that you can't actually control. It's an outcome, it's a result, but it's not something that you have any control over. Things that you do have control over are the types of food that you eat, the number of calories that you eat, making sure that you're in a calorie deficit, that you've stuck to your calorie budget. Another thing that you can do, which is really going to help, is to improve your nutrition. There are times when I stepped on the scales and the weight didn't go down. I expected it to go down, but it didn't. And then I thought about the types of foods that I've been eating all week, and I knew they were nutritious and healthy foods. And I felt proud of myself for putting that nourishment into my body. And that is a goal that I could control. I couldn't control the weight on the scales, but I knew I had control over my own health because I'd put healthy food into my body that last week. Another thing you can do is realign with your why, with your reason for losing weight in the first place. Although everyone thinks that they want to be a certain weight and they think that that's going to make them happy, things that really end up making them happy are improving your confidence, improving your health, improving your energy, being able to run around with your kids, not get ill as often. And these are deeper reasons that can motivate you to get back on track. So based on your why, you can start to take some mini actions to get back on track again. Think of some small, manageable things that you can do. Could you plan your food for tomorrow? Could you go shopping? Could you prepare your food in advance for tomorrow so that you know you're going to stay on track tomorrow? Taking action helps you break the cycle of disappointment as you start to feel a sense of accomplishment for the actions that you're taking. Another thing you can do is practice self-compassion. How would you react to a friend who had stuck to their diet all week and they still hadn't lost any weight? You'd give them encouragement. So don't beat yourself up. Don't say horrible, nasty things to yourself. Treat yourself with kindness like you would treat a friend. You are worthy of that same respect that you would give to other people, so give it to yourself. You wouldn't like it if somebody else came up to you and said, "Oh, that's disgusting. You did not stick to your diet. You failed. You're such a failure. Fancy gaining weight when you said you'd stuck to your diet. You're never going to succeed." If somebody else said that to you, you'd be horrified. So why do you let yourself say those words to yourself? Don't stand for it anymore. Another thing you can do is focus on the long-term weight loss journey. Look back at the last 4 weeks. Was the trend of weight loss going downhill? If it was, then you are on track. If it wasn't, then something needs to change. Another thing you can do is seek support. Having the support from friends or a community of people who are also going through the same struggles as you really help, because you can commiserate with each other and you can help motivate each other. And if you're really sick of the scales, you could set some new flexible goals, such as developing some new healthy habits. And this reduces the focus on weight loss alone and makes you much more likely to stick to it and stay motivated to have a healthy lifestyle. Another thing you can do is you can track and celebrate your emotional progress. So you might feel like you're all over the place at the moment. Every time you step on the scales and you've not got the results you want, or maybe even the scale weight has gone down and you feel like it's not gone down enough and you're still an emotional wreck. You can actually track how emotional you are so that you can see improvements on your emotional resilience in time. You can track your progress in a journal. You can write down marks out of 10, how emotional you feel when you've had a disappointment. And you can celebrate victories where you feel like you have handled stress in a very emotionally resilient way. So how do we go about strengthening our emotional resilience? I remember when I first started my business, I read a book called Go for No. Yes is the destination. No is how to get there. And what the book was about was that you were trying to get people to say yes to your business to become a customer. But on the journey to all those yeses that you wanted, there would be plenty more no's on the way. And when people try running a business, a lot of people don't even get to the yeses that they need to make the business a success because the no's have battered them down. They're too disappointed with the number of no's that they've given up on their business completely. Or sometimes you feel like you've just stagnated. And it can be like this growing a membership. One person says, yes, we have a new member. Another person says no. And then they leave the membership. So it's like one in, one out, one in, one out. And you feel like you're just static all the time. And the concept of losing weight is very similar to running a business. A lot of people think that to lose weight, you just have to see those yeses on the scales. So the yeses on the scales translate into weight loss. So all people want to see is a success, another success. Yes, I've got the result. Yes, I've done it. Yes, another weight loss. But life doesn't work this way. To get success in anything, you're going to have more setbacks than successes. And you might say, well, if I kept on having more setbacks with my weight, I wouldn't be losing weight at all. I would just be constantly gaining weight. And it doesn't exactly work like this. So most people only weigh themselves once a week. And they're hoping for that yes. They're hoping for that success. And they're like, oh, I can't look. I can't look. Oh, thank goodness. I got my yes. I got my result. But what they don't actually realize is that the rest of the week, they've been burying their heads in the sand. They've been ignoring their weight and not even looking at it. From the point where you weigh yourself, week 1, say your weight's at 11 stone 2. Your weight doesn't stay at 11 stone 2 for the whole week. And then the next week it jumps to 11 stone 1 if you've lost a pound. In reality, what actually happens is the next day when you get on the scales, your weight might be 11 stone 2. An hour later, it's 11 stone 3. An hour later, it's 11 stone 4. You put on a jacket, it's 11 stone 5. You had your dinner, it's 11 stone 6. You ate something salty, it's gone up to 11 stone 7. Next day, you've weighed yourself again. Because of the salty meal, it's gone up to 11 stone 3. And it goes up, 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 down, up, with lots of ups throughout the day. And then the next day, maybe you didn't have that extra salty meal and your weight's gone down to 11 stone 1. Success, but you didn't notice it because you didn't weigh yourself. Then you've gone out for a party, you've eaten loads of party foods, and then at the evening, your weight's gone up to 11 stone 9. Next day you weigh yourself, because of all that party food, it's jumped back to 11 stone 5, but it's still heavier than what you were. The next morning you weigh yourself, your weight's back at 11 stone 2, and then you stick to your diet again, and then your weight's gone down to 11 stone 1. So all the way through every single day, your weight is going up and up and up and up and up, but you're just not aware of it. So you're having all of these setbacks, but you just haven't noticed. So one of the reasons that I decided I was going to start weighing myself every single day was to practice emotional resilience. I knew that my weight was going to fluctuate every day, during every day, and over the course of the week. So I mentally prepared myself for that. And because I started weighing myself every day, getting on the scales was no longer a terrifying prospect. It was no longer an event that could make or break my entire week and lead me into the pit of despair. It simply became data that I was interested in, that could help me decide whether to change my plan or not. Another reason I decided to weigh myself every day is because if I was to give myself the freedom to eat what I wanted when I wanted, I could easily gain 7 pounds in a week. And I don't want to ever go that far off course because I know how long it takes me to lose that 7 pounds. So as I'm weighing myself every day, if I continue to eat the regular foods that I normally have, and there's nothing else that's changed in my body, nothing hormonal going on, and I see my weight going up by 1 pound every day, I think, well, that's a very rapid weight gain. It's not normal. So maybe I am eating something that's causing this weight gain. And I can adjust my plan midweek instead of waiting for a whole week's worth of weight gain. So for that reason, I suggest people own a set of scales and use them daily, first thing in the morning, after you've been to the toilet, with minimal clothes on. And practice emotional resilience. And don't forget, weighing yourself is just one tool when it comes to your weight loss journey. There are so many other ways to track your progress. If you're a data-driven person, You can track your body measurements, your strength and performance progress, your body fat percentage. If you're more of a visual person, you can track your progress photos, side-by-side comparisons of your photos, and look to see how your clothes are fitting you. If you're someone who cares more about how you feel about yourself, then you can track things like your energy levels, your strength and endurance, your daily habits, your cravings, your sleep, how healthy you feel. So just do what works for you. Not everyone enjoys weighing themselves, so you don't have to do it. But in my opinion, it still is the best form of tracking, because it might not be accurate every single week, but over the course of time, if you're losing fat, your weight will probably go down unless you're very close to your healthy weight range and you're building a lot of muscle at the same time. Otherwise, your weight should continue to go down as you lose the fat. And if you'd like more support from me, I offer one-to-one coaching, weight loss clubs, and do-it-yourself programs. So check those out in the description below. And now it's time to turn your struggle into strength.